It's that time of year when families come together to celebrate the holidays. And I know that for many people, it's something you might not be looking forward to. In fact, you might feel a lot of dread and discomfort around the very idea of spending time with family. And I hear this a lot from people, especially in the spiritual community, because generally speaking, it can feel challenging sometimes to be around people who don't share or understand your interest in spirituality. People who seem more focused on superficial or materialistic things, or who might even be critical, dismissive, or judgmental toward the path you've chosen. Something I've noticed is that when you're living on your own, and especially when you're part of a spiritual community, it can be really easy to feel more calm, more centered, to feel patient, compassionate, loving, and accepting. It may be very easy under those conditions to feel as if you've made a great deal of progress on your spiritual journey. But I'm reminded of something Ram Dass used to say. If you think you're enlightened, go spend some time with your family. Because it's easy to fall under the illusion of spiritual advancement when there's nothing there to trigger you. In the right conditions, we can easily ignore or even repress those parts of ourselves that we find unacceptable or uncomfortable, or that simply don't fit with the image in our mind of what a spiritual person is supposed to be like. But the moment you get around family, you get triggered, and all those things that you buried come bubbling up to the surface. Suddenly you find yourself reacting in ways that feel unnerving, experiencing emotions you thought you had transcended, and catching yourself in old patterns and behaviors you thought you outgrew long ago. And it might feel like all the work you've done has begun to unravel, leaving you right back where you started. But the thing to understand is that the greatest growth comes from being challenged. It comes from being provoked, from being triggered. Because it's those moments that draw your attention to the places in yourself that still need healing. And when you're on your own or among friends or with others who are on the spiritual path, it might feel natural and effortless to be calm and kind, patient and forgiving, clear-headed and open-hearted. But the real test is whether or not you can maintain that level of clarity and compassion when someone's pushing your buttons. And when you get around relatives, you might find yourself suddenly feeling irritable, agitated, or anxious. Or maybe you find yourself becoming angry or defensive. Or maybe you become more quiet and withdrawn. And whatever the case, whatever it brings up, whatever the reaction, we might feel the urge to run away. But moments like these are actually an invitation to turn toward whatever is arising, to look more deeply, to see yourself with greater clarity, and to understand yourself more fully. At the very least, it can give you a healthy dose of humility, because the ego can latch on to spirituality and build an identity around it, where you begin to see yourself as being so above and beyond the world that it creates a sense of superiority or arrogance or spiritual pride. And so it's good to be reminded now and then that you're still just as human as everyone else, just to keep you grounded and humble. But here's where things get really interesting. You see, the things that tend to get activated when you're around your family, the fears and frustrations, reactions and defense mechanisms, all the various emotions and insecurities that come up. Most of these triggers were formed in that same environment. And sometimes the best place to begin healing our wounds is in the same place where they were created. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to situations where your family is genuinely toxic, abusive, or in any way harmful to your well-being. Sometimes the most conscious thing you can do is to have enough love and respect for yourself to set firm boundaries and to choose not to be around people who don't respect those boundaries. With that being said, childhood conditioning doesn't just dissolve when we grow up and move away from home, nor does it tend to dissolve just because you meditate or study spiritual teachings. These patterns get deeply ingrained in our subconscious, and we carry them around with us throughout our lives. And the only way to make any progress toward resolving them is to bring them out into the light of awareness where we can look at them. The problem is, how do you bring awareness to something you're not already aware of? Well, that's where family comes in. Because being around family can make you uncomfortably aware of those things that you've been unconscious of. Being around family can be like having a mirror held up in front of you, showing you all the places where you're still carrying pain, fear, anger, shame, sorrow, and insecurity. And as uncomfortable as it might be, it's incredibly valuable. Something I often hear from people in the spiritual community is this question of how to deal with unconscious people. And what I try to remind them is that we're all unconscious in some way. Spirituality is about waking up, becoming more conscious. But to do that, you first have to recognize where you're unconscious. And if you find yourself feeling frustrated or irritated around certain people, that feeling might be pointing you to something within that needs your attention. Something that needs exploring or healing or understanding. And so the things that challenge us, the things that trigger us, it's all part of the journey of awakening. Those uncomfortable feelings aren't obstacles on the path. They are the path. So if you're dreading the holidays because your family doesn't understand you, or they dismiss your spiritual interests, or because they bring up feelings that you'd rather not deal with, I want to encourage you to see those things as an invitation for real growth and awakening. And maybe this is a good time to drop the image in your mind of what you think it means to be spiritual. Maybe it's a good time to embrace this human experience with all of its messiness and imperfection, and to shift from avoidance to curiosity, to notice what gets stirred up, to notice what rises to the surface, and to meet it with compassion rather than resistance or judgment or condemnation. And maybe it's an opportunity to let go of trying to be spiritual and just be. Maybe the most spiritual thing you can do is just be present and receptive and authentic. Maybe you can learn to let go and relax and just enjoy the time you have with your family. To not take everything so seriously, but to allow things to be as they are, and to allow others to be as they are, and to love them anyway. I hope you have a happy holiday. And regardless of whether it's peaceful or uncomfortable or a little chaotic, I hope it brings you a little more openness, a little more clarity, a little more compassion and understanding. And most of all, I hope it brings you something meaningful. If you find value in this content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe.